Okay, today we're going to look at the indices, but when we raise something to a negative power. So till now we've dealt with 2 to the power of 3 or 4 to the power of 8. But what happens if I have 2 to the power of, let's make it easy, negative 1? What on earth is going on there? So let's take a look. So 2 to the power of negative 1 is just basically the inverse. So what happens is I have 1 over 2 to the power of 1. So it's just the inverse. Let's do another example. Let's say 3 to the power of negative 2. That would be the inverse. And I have a 3 as a numerator, and it's squared. I know it's very weird. It's very weird. Let's do a couple. Let's do a couple, see if you can figure out how this works. We'll do them on the side here. So let's say we have 2 to the power of negative 4, and I have 6 to the power of negative 2, and I have 8 to the power of negative 10. So what would happen in each case? Basically, I'm getting the inverse. So 1, 2 to the power of 4. I'm just giving it a hat. This is a hat. Okay, please don't do that in an exam. And then another case, 6 squared, and then 1 over 8 to the power of 10. So if I have any fraction, I can write it, well, not anything, well, we can, but I'm not going to go into too much detail about that. Let's say I had fractions like a half, or a quarter, or a 16th. How can I write this? I can write it as 2 to the power of negative 1. And this I can write as 2, well, let's just do one step at a time. 4 to the power of negative 1. But now comes the catch. Well, actually I should have done the other way first. Otherwise it becomes easy. Well, tricky. So 4, would you agree 4 is the same as 2 to the power of 2? And then next, I can do, well, I want to write it as not as a fraction, so then I can say 2 to the power of negative 2. Okay, just to go back about if I did the other thing first, I'll get back to this now. I could have done this and said 1 to the power of, 1 over 4 is 4 to the power of negative 1. And then, this is the tricky part. This 4 I can change into 2 to the power of 2. But I have to remember this whole number has already been raised to negative 1. So 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. So that's also a way. This is probably easier. So sorry I went this route first. But yeah, let's look at this example and we see what we can do. I'm just going to write it, keep that one there. Let's do 1 over 16. So I have an option. I know 16 is a square number. So I can write maybe 1 over 4 squared. But I can even simplify it a bit further by doing 1 over 2 to the power of 2 to the power of 2, which is 4. Because 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. And then from here I can go 2 to the power of negative 4. Okay, these are a bit tricky because they have these square numbers and we wrote it in a very simple form. But the only thing you have to understand from this video is understanding that when we have a fraction, it's basically raising something to a negative number. Let's do a little bit of a different example. It's going to be a little weird, but I have faith in you. Let's say we had a very big fraction like x to the power of negative 2 over x to the power of negative 3. So what on earth is going on here? Basically, if I have any number, if there's a fraction and the number at the top, which is our numerator, has a negative index or exponential power, I can basically just drop it below and write it as a positive number, so x squared. And I have this number at the bottom, that's a negative index. I can just take that to the top, and that becomes x to the power of 3. So it's basically just this happened. So let's do an example with a lot of, let's say, weird indexes. So a to the power of minus 1 times b squared, and c to the power of negative 4 over x to the power of 3, y to the power of negative 2, and yeah, let's just do that for now. So if I had to write this with my indices in the positive form, I just look at all the negative ones and I take them to the bottom, and everything that's a negative at the bottom I just take to the top. Very scientifically explained. So this a to the power of negative 1, I lined that below. So I can just write a, but I'll write a to to the power of 1. The b, that's going to stay at the top, b squared. The c is going to go below as well. And this x is going to stay down here because it's positive down here. And the y is going to move to the top, squared. Pretty simple. I know it looks very daunting. We're going to do some, at the end of the series, we'll do some actual examples of a lot of different problems that you might get in an exam. But this is just trying to get your head around what we're doing with negative indices.